Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We start a new chapter in software engineering, that is software process and project metrics. Measurement is a very fundamental concept within any engineering discipline, and software engineering is no exception. Measurement actually makes us enabled to gain insight by providing a technique for the evaluation of the objectives for the current project. So, in any way possible, we generally measure our projects, our activities, in order to bring improvement in our businesses. So in this chapter, we'll be discussing how we can measure a software process and how we can measure the overall software project. What metrics can be used to measure a software process and the project as overall. Let's see the outline, the points that we are going to discuss in this chapter. So this is the outline. First, we have to develop an understanding with the chapter. We need to differentiate between different terminologies, and we need to understand why we have to, or why it is important to measure your software processes and projects. Then we need to elaborate the difference between some of the very common terminologies which are commonly used interchangeably, such as measures, metrics, and indicators. What is the difference between all these three and how these three can be used within a software process and a software project? Then the importance of metrics within the software process and project will be discussed next. Why they are important and what sort of metrics can be used. How we can measure a software, which is the end product of a software process. So what are the techniques we can use to measure a software? We will be discussing next. And at the end, we will see how we can integrate those metrics within a software engineering process. There is an important concept also, which is matrix or related to software quality, or how we can measure software quality. This is very important topic, so I have segregated that topic from this chapter and made it a separate independent chapter which we'll be discussing later on. Software quality measurement is an important aspect when you have to measure your software process and project. So we'll be discussing the quality of software and how you can measure it on what parameters, that we will discuss separately in a separate chapter. So let's proceed with today's discussion. The first point that we are going to discuss today is the introduction with the topic, and to have an understanding what actually does the topic mean and why it is important to measure your process and project. Software metrics mainly refer to a wide range of measurements for software. Measurements are generally applied to software processes with the intention to bring improvement on the continuous basis. Measurements are generally used throughout a software project in order to assist in the estimation of cost, efforts, time, in quality control, in the assessment of the project productivity, and overall in the project control. It can also help the software engineer to assess the quality of the software developed. So the quality is another important factor, and as I just said, we are going to discuss the quality of software and how we can measure the quality in a separate chapter. So the measurement helps in taking strategic and tactical decisions for an ongoing project. So software process and project metrics are quantitative measures which are commonly used by the software development organization or the administration or management. So there are quantitative measures that help a software engineer to gain an insight into the efficiency or the effectiveness of the software process and the project as a whole. So through proper measurement, a software engineer can assess the effectiveness of the techniques he is using to develop the process and the project overall. Here, basic quality related and productivity data are collected, which are then analyzed and compared against the past averages. So, how the work proceeds? Basic quality related data and the productivity data are collected, and they are then compared with the averages of the past projects, such as the time spent on the past similar project and how much the time is being spent on the current project, the efforts required in the current project and how they are different on similar past project. So different measures are then compared in order to bring improvement in the overall software development process. Metrics are used generally to pinpoint the problem for which then remedies are developed, and the software process then gets improved with continuous feedback and continuous improvement. Why is it important to measure your software process and the project overall? Keep in mind, software metrics are analyzed and assessed by software managers, since this is a management tool or a management activity, while the measures are often collected by the software engineers and then assigned to the management, who then evaluate the performance of the software process. So if you do not measure, so the improvement or the judgments or improvement are mainly based on the subjective valuations, which normally have no concrete grounds. But with proper measurement, you can spot the trends. Now, trend can be good, trend can be bad. Either you are moving towards improvement or you are mainly destroying the product or destroying the project overall. So the trend can be both good or bad. So with proper measurement, you can spot the trends. It is quite easy to make better estimates for the time, cost, and all other resources, etc. So with proper measures, you can have better estimates in terms of the price of the product, the price of the efforts required, the time required, and all other resources. And then it is also helpful in bringing continuous improvement within your software process. So these are the benefits which you get if you have proper measurement techniques, not only for your process but for the project as a whole. Now the next point that we are going to discuss is the difference between measures, metrics, and indicators. Let's see what is the difference between these three terms. Sometimes the terms measures, metrics, and indicators are used interchangeably, but there are slight difference between them. Measure basically provides a quantitative indication of the extent, amount, dimension, capacity, or size of some attribute of a product or a process. So measure actually is giving a quantitative indication on some specific attribute of either the process or the product. For example, you say this software is very expensive as compared to similar other software. So actually you are comparing on the basis of some measure. You are comparing two softwares, two similar softwares on the basis of some measure, and you have your measurement attribute. The attribute you have selected for the purpose of measurement is the cost. Now, the measurement is actually the act of determining a measure. As I just said, you are measuring. The attribute for the measurement is the cost for you. If you are comparing two similar products on the basis of their cost. Now, matrix is, so let me highlight. Now, what is matrix? Matrix is a quantitative measure of the degree to which a system, a component, or a process possesses a given attribute. So it is a quantitative measure to the degree on which a system, some component, or the overall process possesses that attribute. So all the three terms measure, measurement, and metrics are related. When a single data point is collected, for example, number of errors found within a single module, so that means a measure has been established. So what is the measure now in this case? The number of errors found in a single module. Now you have established a single measure for a product. Measurement occurs as a result of collection of one or more data points. For example, a number of modules being reviewed for the errors. Software engineer collects measures and develops metrics for that indicators can be then obtained. Now, what is an indicator? An indicator is actually a metric or a combination of metrics that provide an insight into the complete software process a project or the end product. An indicator helps in adjusting the software process, the project, in order to make the output much better. The next topic that we are going to discuss, after having an understanding what is measure, what is measurement, and what is indicator, what is matrix. Matrix actually is obtained from measures, and matrix then help in indication points where improvements are required. Now we need to discuss what are the metrics in the process and project domains. This is the next point that we are going to discuss. Measurement is very common activity in our daily life. For example, we measure power consumption, we measure weight, we measure physical dimensions, temperature, voltages, etc. But unfortunately, measurement is not very common activity within the software world, as people within the software community do not agree on what to measure, and also they face trouble in the evaluation of the data collected. Process metrics are collected across all projects, and main intention is to provide the indicators which can then lead to continuous process improvement. So generally metrics are collected on every project in order to get the indication for improvement. The only way to improve some software process is to measure specific attributes. So in order to bring improvement, you need to measure specific attribute of a process. By using these metrics, then indicators are given which then help in continuous improvement within your strategy. So the only way to improve a software process is to measure the specific attribute of that process, then develop some meaningful metrics based on those attributes. And by using those metrics, we then obtain the indicators which indicate the improvement areas, and ultimately we get an improved project development strategy. Software process has a profound impact on software quality and organizational performance. So it is the process that actually highlights the performance of an organization or the quality of the end product. Normally, the efficacy of a software process is measured indirectly. That means a set of metrics are derived on the outcomes that are obtained from the process. Those outcomes include measures of errors uncovered before release of the software. I have mentioned those outcomes here. You can see the different outcomes which are obtained from a process. So these can be then used as metrics. So the outcomes include measures of errors uncovered before release of the software, the defects delivered to the customer, and the defects reported by the end user The work products delivered to the customer, human efforts expanded. Human effort expanded, that means more human effort that is required than usual. The time expanded, more time required than usual or than estimated, and similar other measures. Process metrics can also be derived by measuring the characteristics of specific software engineering tasks. For example, we can measure the effort and time spent performing specific activity. Process data can be either private or public. Individual software engineer may be sensitive to some data. For example, the defect rates by an individual and errors found in his work. So process improvement must begin at the individual level, but those data are never public to the software development team. Some process metrics are private to software project team but public to all the team members. For example, defects reported in major software functions developed by a group of developers. So this data can be reviewed by the team to uncover the indicators which can then improve the performance of a team. While the public metrics are generally collective information that originally were private to individuals, such as project level defect rate, project level efforts, the time and other related data, as individual is not aware of the time and work being done by another individual working on some other aspect of a software. So this data is then collected, evaluated in order to uncover or in order to highlight the indicators which can then improve the performance of the organization as a whole. Now, what is metrics within project domain? Software process metrics are generally strategic, as they are used to improve the organization strategy for development a product. So software metrics, software process metrics are strategic in order to bring improvement within the strategy of the organization as a whole. While on the other hand, software project measures are quite tactical, as they are used to take tactical decisions. When to change some activity, how to change some activity, at what point to change some activity. These are tactical decisions which are related to a project, and the project metrics are used to take such decisions. The first application of project metrics on some software project occurs during estimation. The estimation of the time, estimation of cost, estimation of efforts required, estimation of other related resources required. So the metrics collected from past projects are used as a basis from which efforts and time estimates are commonly made for the current similar software project. As a project proceeds, measures of effort and time gets expanded and are then compared to original estimates. So, a project metric mainly helps a software manager to assess the status of current project, to track different risks which may arise while handling the project, to uncover the problem areas which might be more troublesome while handling the software project, adjust the workflows accordingly, You may change workflow. This is the tactical decision when to change the workflow, how to change the workflow, and how to change the project team, and also to evaluate the team's ability in controlling software quality work products. The work products include the documentation, the software, the procedures, all include the work products. So these are all the important areas which are uncovered by the project matrix and help in taking the tactical decisions. Project matrix provides two major benefits. First, these metrics are used to minimize the development schedule. Help in minimizing the development schedule by making adjustments necessary in order to avoid unnecessary delays and mitigate the potential problems as well as risks. While the other benefit that it provides is to assess the product quality on an ongoing basis, and when necessary, modify the technical approaches to improve the project quality and also the product quality. So here within the project domain, metrics help to take necessary decisions when required. They may not be required or they may be required. Mainly, it helps in minimizing the development schedule and in assessing the product quality. As quality improves, the defects are minimized, and as the defect count goes down, the amount of rework required for that product is also reduced. So this leads to a reduction in the overall project cost, and ultimately you get a product or a software at quite affordable or reduced costs. That is all for now. We'll continue our discussion in this chapter and discuss further more topics in the coming lecture. I hope you have understood the topics we have discussed today. If you have any query or confusion, you can email me or ask me on KCMS. I thank you all.